Welcome again to another episode of Sneaks, Rhymes, and Life. I am your host, Lionel McDonald. So special guest today, all the way from, well, I think some of you have heard before that I've lived in Vancouver at one point. So Kathy Ager, got it right, Kathy? Okay, so
Yep.
Kathy Ager, all the way from Vancouver. She used to live in actually kind of one of the neighborhoods that I lived in. She is a painter by trade, but there's a connection to sneakers, which we'll get into in a little bit. But Kathy, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad we've been able to connect over Instagram over these several months. But I think there's just some of amazing work that you've done and what you've created. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe your journey of painting and how you kind of got started.
Sure. Yeah. I make these Baroque style still lifes. Basically, I incorporate like some sort of classical items, but also modern stuff, like as you say, like sneakers and just like references to modern things. It was kind of like a long way of getting to where I am now. Like I didn't start out as an artist. I actually went to school first for pre-veterinary sciences.
Wow. Okay.
I went to UVic first in Victoria here in BC. And then I switched to anthropology. So then I got a degree in anthropology. And then I had this girlfriend of mine who was going to a graphic design program at Cap College, which is now called Cap University, University here. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. And I was always into art and stuff in high school. So I made a portfolio, and then I got in for the year after I graduated from my anthropology degree. So then I did a whole like graphic design program, and then I worked in advertising and design agencies for the last 10 years or so. And then I had learned a bit of like different art mediums and stuff in graphic design school. Like we learned some illustrations. So we learned how to use like acrylics and gouache and oil paints and stuff. And so I'd done it a little bit, but it wasn't until maybe, I guess like 5 years ago or so, I started painting just because I was actually really sick. I had like a stomach problem that none of the doctors could figure out. And I just needed something to entertain myself at home. So I just like started painting. I just started like copying photos that I had taken. And then one day I found this still life photo online that I really liked. And so I just painted that. And I kind of liked how the objects told a story. And so I styled my own still life once, and it turned out really well. And I painted it and it turned out really well. But like, I was so embarrassed about it because it was like so personal. It was the first thing I've ever made that actually had any kind of personal meaning to it. And I was so scared for anybody to see it, but people loved it so much. And I was like, okay, I'm kind of on a roll here. And I just started putting objects together, and basically they all have like deep meaning to me, but like I try to craft them in a way that is appealing to other people too. They don't need to know the like super personal meaning behind them. And it's just gotten on a roll. And then I got posted on a couple of big Instagrams, and then I got a gallery interested in me right away. And I just I had my big break, and then I just got on a roll. Yeah, so that was like 3 or 4 years ago, and now it's just been like rolling.
Yeah, it definitely seems like you're rolling, and I would say that I think the painting that I really caught my eye was, I think it's that coastal blue dunk low that you have incorporated, and it was like, what am I looking at?
That one's brought to you by Ativan. Like, that's the thing, is like there's so many, because I don't know if you've ever had to take an Ativan, but they're blue. They're the same color as those dunks. Yeah. And I had those dunks, and then I also noticed the color of the pill. I'm like, these are the same color. And it was like summertime, and I was like, fuck, this is like these things just all kind of come together in my life, you know?
Yeah. So I think the $1 million question from my perspective as a sneaker fan, and I've been a sneaker fan for 30 years at least, is how did sneakers become incorporated into some of your pieces of work?
Well, I think a couple of ways. One is that like everything in my paintings are symbolic of something, whether it's a person or a feeling or something like that. And then also maybe just as a designer, I I just really like things that are graphic. That's kind of why I lean towards sports related references as well. I like things like baseball stuff and basketball stuff because I like the graphics of the jerseys or the sneakers and all that kind of stuff. And also I just like how valued they are in like the street scene, you know, and I just
100%.
People really covet them, you know, and they're really hard to get your hands on usually, you know, unless you're just buying a basic pair at Foot Locker or something, you know, it's like hard to get anything more special. So the first time I put Nikes into painting was it was like to symbolize a person who was working at Nike, like somebody that I know there. Okay. And so it was like, it wasn't even in a way thinking, oh, this is cool or something. It was like, oh, I'll just put these in there. I never usually put something like that in there. But the reaction was wild. Like that was one of the pieces that got me picked up by galleries and stuff. So since then, like, yeah, a lot of the times I've been adding sneakers in for different reasons, or every commission that I get, I don't think I've ever had a commission where it didn't involve sneakers. Like, so a lot of the paintings that I do that people ask me to do are sneaker related. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, it's gone on a roll.
Yeah, I think definitely sneakers in general has such an impact on society and, you know, whether it's social currency, whether it's fashion, it's whether it's related to sports, it has an impact on so many different things. So it's very cool that there's actually, you know, beyond just painting a sneaker for the sake of painting, there's actually a deeper meaning, and you know, you're related to the person that worked at Nike. So that's you know, pretty amazing. So really curious, like give us that coastal blue Jordan, or actually it's a Dunk Low, or you have this another one that I saw that I think you recently put on like a sweatshirt and it sold out like this. It was a print, but the print ended up on a sweatshirt. Like, how long does it take you to create a piece like that?
Usually like I'm thinking of the idea in my head for a while. So I don't know if you count that in the execution time, but
let's give me start to finish.
I have once thought of a painting idea for a year before or like maybe even 2 years before it all came together. So usually I have an idea about something and I'll kind of like ponder it for a while. And I visualize it in my head for a while, and things kind of need to, I don't know if this makes any sense, but it all just like needs to come together to create the perfect, like, so I usually don't even start if I don't have a name for it either. Like usually I have an idea and I also have a name, and it's usually inspired by like song lyrics or something like that, something poetic, something meaningful. And then it all comes together. And then I start trying to like actually visualize it and take photos. I take photos of the shoes, for example, and find all the references. So once I get that going, because that could take a while because I'm just kind of like puttering around with it, but the actual painting itself, once I get it, I draw it on the canvas, it can take me like 2 or 3 weeks. If it's a smaller one, like the ones with the sneakers and stuff are usually kind of like 18 by 24 inches. And like the bigger ones, like I just finished this big one and that took me like 2 months, not working totally full time on it. Like I'm fitting in some other stuff in between, but yeah, so it's kind of a long process in a way, but some of them, honestly, like there's this one, I had this idea that I wanted a coyote in it and I had no idea how I was going to go about that. And then like 2 years ago, a coyote was hit by a car in front of my family's property. And my mom called me up and was like, hey, there's this coyote. Like, do you want us to keep it for you? I'm like, fuck yeah. So my family like put it on their pickup and brought it into the property. And I came down later that day and my mom helped me photograph it for using as reference and stuff. So it's like, you just never know. So that painting, I really loved that painting, you know, but it was like, I was just sitting on that idea for a long time.
Okay, well, that's great perspective in terms of, you know, how long it takes, right? And I think, you know, if they, you know, many of our sneaker fans out there see your Instagram and see, I think there's a Jordan 5, or I think it's a 5 that you have in a picture of one, and then there's the Air Force, and then this dunk that I keep referencing because that's my favorite one. Like that's the one I keep going to. And I think, I think the timing of everything, because that color was so popular last year, and I think it's spilling into this year. And I was like, so many people kept talking about that shoe, and then to see it as in a piece of art, I think that's what kind of caught my attention, right? So I think you mentioned some of your projects and you work on some things in between. So how many projects are you kind of currently working on simultaneously?
I try to only work on one at a time.
Right.
Otherwise, although I don't know, maybe I should try doing multiple at a time, but because I also do graphic design a bit, like if I do other work, it's usually graphic design on the side. So I kind of like not having too many of the same things on the go, because I find it just gets me like my wires, I just start short circuiting a little bit, and it's like, oh fuck. But so far things have really worked out that something comes along right when I finished my current thing. Like basically, if I don't have any other projects that people are coming at me with, I can just make my own painting, and that's just as good for me as a commission or collaboration. But I just finished a big commission, and then now I'm talking to 2 different companies. One is like a clothing brand. I mean, I don't know. I think I'm not supposed to actually say any like names of the brands yet, but one is like a cool clothing brand.
Awesome.
I was just watching the documentary about Kanye, like, his, like the one on Netflix. Is it on Netflix? Yeah,
it's fantastic. Genius.
I noticed a lot of this brand was being worn by them back in the, like, by all those dudes, like back in the early 2000s. So I was like, sweet, which I knew, but it was like fun to actually see it. So I'm talking to them. I might be doing a project with them. And then also like this playing cards, like trading cards, like, sports trading cards project also is in the works. So I'll probably be working on those 2 things over the next couple of months or something. And then, otherwise I'll just come up with my own ideas.
Okay.
Like what I probably should be doing more often, but these days I just have a lot of like jobs that I don't want to say no to.
Yeah. So when we talk about your brand and where do you think you want to take things? I know you're primarily based on oil paintings, but if you consider branching out and do things, you want to continue to specialize in this, like, have you thought about, what you want to do?
Not majorly. I think I really like the projects that are coming to me. Like I only say yes to things that I really like the idea of. But I don't know. I try not to get too ahead of myself in it, because it is kind of stressful. Like I was telling you earlier, I think before we were recording, like, because they take me so long to make, I just find I feel like I'm always in a pressure cooker, like I need to, and because when I'm working for myself, you're not getting paid until you're finished the job. It's not like I'm getting paid a wage, whether or not I like half-ass it or not, like I don't get paid until I finish each thing. So it feels as if I'm like walking through muddy water, and like I can't move fast enough. So I try not to like think of too bigger things necessarily, but I think recently I've just been doing my taxes for last year, and that has been an eye opener. That's been an eye opener to like what actually makes me good money and what doesn't. And so I'm like, oh, okay, I need to probably do more of this and less of this. So like prints are really good, but because of COVID, I usually source my prints down in the States and then have them shipped to the border. Hopefully customs is not listening to this. And then I just go pick them up, because like, in Vancouver, I live like 45 minutes from the border. So I can just go pick them up without having to pay like hundreds of customs fees. But because of COVID, we weren't allowed to cross the border. So I had to get everything done either in Vancouver or get it shipped. And so it really cut into my income with that, so mostly I think in this upcoming couple of years, I just need to be more strategic in terms of like where I'm putting my energy. But otherwise things are just kind of coming to me at the moment, and I'm just kind of like, let it roll.
Yeah, well, that's a great position to be in, to just let it roll. And it's interesting you mentioned the pandemic and, you know, just the impact of what that done to your business, and having to get prints done in the US and go to the border and pick it up. You know, did your business get slower, or because you were able to do stuff online, you actually had more time and things actually picked up? I've heard that with a lot of people, that
I was
people
shocked. I'm like,
skyrocketed.
what? Everybody was really into buying art. To be honest, I'm like slightly concerned, like, what's everybody doing with their money? But like, at the same time, who am I going to argue? Like, sometimes I really, because I'm not one to like spend my money a lot on stuff, it's like, I'm always a little concerned when people are buying like a lot of stuff from me. I'm like, are you guys okay with like your finances? But yeah, it hasn't slowed down at all. Like, people seem, especially sneaker stuff, I've noticed, like, I think even like people can't always get their hands on like the actual original sneaker, you know, but they could get their hands on a print, or they have the sneakers and they love them so much they want some art referencing them, you know. So it's like people are really hungry for it. But that's
it's a combination of both. Like, I think when you love a shoe, like, you know, I think of black in cement Jordan 4 or a Jordan 5 or a Jordan 1, or, you know, whatever my favorite sneaker is. Like, sometimes there's not enough mediums to capture. I need it on a shirt. I need the actual shoe. I need the backup shoe. I need it on a hat. I need
the
on
backup
the wall.
shoe. That's the thing, right? Oh, like those
sometimes
dunks,
you need 2 pairs,
dunks.
3
I've
pairs.
like barely worn them because I'm like, oh no, like I can't wear these, but then I want to wear them, but like they're too precious.
You got to wear them. Like, life is too short. You need to wear your sneakers. I tell you.
Also, like, I have them hanging on the wall, and I kind of like that
now
too. You know?
Now it's become a piece of art. So that's
yeah, the because they're in that painting, and I've hung them on the wall in the same way that they're in the painting, like because I shot them like that, and I just left them. You know, it's like, okay, actually, like kind of like this.
So you mentioned that you have those, you bought those, you have them on your wall, like, you know. How big is your sneaker collection? Are you a fan? I know I've seen a couple pictures online. You like Vans and obviously these dunks, but, you know, are you much of a sneaker fan, or what does that look like?
I am, but not like, I wouldn't count myself in on as a major sneakerhead at all. Like, as I was saying, like, I'm not really one to spend my money too much because I've been working for myself for so long now. It's like, I have to be really careful with my money. So I don't really buy a lot of sneakers. A lot of the sneakers that I have are just through connections. Like, I didn't actually pay much for them.
Yeah. Okay, good.
And so it's just like, whatever I can get my hands on in that sense. But mostly the sneakers that I paint, I find references for them online, or if I know somebody who has a pair, I'll ask if they're like in a pretty good condition. I'll ask if I can shoot them. But yeah, I'm not like a super fanatic. I have to say that, like, I've kind of learned a lot just by working on these paintings and stuff. Like, I've done more research on them now than I did before I started painting them, you know.
Student of sneakers, very nice.
Yeah, exactly. I've had to like look things up and like read about stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so, you know, again, your world of sneakers and your artistic talent, it's pretty amazing to see. You know, are there, you know, you think of, you know, today we're recording on the 31st of March, and, you know, it's been, you know, North America wise, I guess we can call it Women's History Month. We had International Women's Day on the 8th, you know. You know, how did that impact you, you know, you as a woman of Canada? You know, what's kind of your perspective? Does it mean much to you? Does it not mean much?
No.
Not at all, eh? Okay.
I don't, okay. It gets me kind of riled up. It's like, it kind of, you know what else has international days? Fucking donuts. There's an International Donut Day. So like, whoop-de-doo, there's an International Women's Day. It kind of gets me riled.
Okay.
I think because like nothing I've ever done in my life I've ever been doing it feeling like I'm doing this as a woman. I'm just doing it as a human, you know? And if anything, like, this is getting me so wild. But if anything, it's like, shouldn't we have international? Okay, why are we having International Women's Day, right? It's like, because there's been a lot of shit that women have like had come at them, you know, like, why not have like international, like, what the fuck is your problem with women day, and like, so that's turned on to like what the problem is,
Right. Yeah.
So I think that's more the thing. So I feel like, it doesn't really do much for me.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So hey, as we wrap up, I mentioned I lived in Vancouver for a while. I think before we started recording, and you're in Vancouver. So what's Vancouver like right now? I know it's like the other rainy season because it's spring, but what's happening in the city? Do you think things are going to come back to life because of the pandemic now? It wasn't like Toronto where we had 3,000 lockdowns. Well, it's only 3, but it felt like a lot.
You said we had one here. I barely remember that one.
Yeah, because it's almost 2 years ago now. It's 2 years. We were in this lockdown. Everyone was watching Netflix and creating masterpieces like you at home, right? So
yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing here. I only just moved back here like 3 years ago. I was living in Amsterdam for 10 years.
Wow.
And I just moved back. And so I really appreciate the wilderness here, the mountains, the English speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So it just feels really nice. Like, I think maybe that's why it hasn't felt like such a struggle here, is because we have a lot of wilderness here, so close to the city, and like also the weather isn't super bad over the winter. So
a few snow days, but nothing like Toronto.
To be spring. Yeah, exactly. We had quite a lot of snow actually over Christmas, but a lot of snow for our standards. It lasted more than a day. But yeah, it's starting to be spring here. The cherry blossoms are out, and it seems really good. I think things are going to start opening up more. Like, seems already like, I don't know, maybe it's because we're just used to it. I don't really think too much of it. We don't have to wear masks inside anymore, but a lot of us
that's pretty well gone away now across the country. And I think any other restrictions will be done by at some point mid-April. So should be in really good shape moving forward. So
I find it awkward though. Some people wear masks inside. And so I kind of just, judge the vibe of a place of like whether people are wearing masks or not. And just
I still do. Like, masks came off in Ontario only 10 days ago, and I'm still wearing a mask everywhere. I think the vast majority are, but there's people that feel comfortable in them, and to each his own. I think this is now why it's not mandated anymore, and let people make the decision that's best for them.
But I have heard that like my friends back in Europe and stuff, things are getting pretty bad again.
Yeah. So. I've heard, I have some friends, colleagues from work, and they tell me exactly the same thing.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Fingers crossed that we don't go backwards. Right. So, So Kathy, again, so thank you so much for your time, really sharing your passion about, sneakers and art. I think it's been a pleasure to hear from you. How do people find you online? Where can they see my favorite picture? I know it's going to go up. I'm going to have to share it again on Instagram because I've shared it like 3 or 4 times, but how do they find you on Instagram?
Yeah, just my Instagram is Kathy Ager, just KATHYAGER. And then from there you can see my shop website and stuff if you want anything.
Yeah, you got to put some more things in a shop, because I went looking at some stuff. It's like, what if I decided? And it's like sold out. So,
you know what you could get your paws on is there's a Nike collaboration that I did. I think Livestock is selling it. Do you have Livestock in Toronto?
Yeah, we do.
So I saw, at least it's online. I'm not sure if they have it in each store. But there's a painting that they commissioned me to make that has Air Force, just like white Air Force Ones in it. And I just noticed that Livestock has it in stock right now. But otherwise, but that I don't get any money for that. But
I might just have to have a peek. Might have to have a peek and say, hey, Kathy, look what I find. If I even go to the store, I'll take a picture and send it to you saying that I found it.
That's awesome. I love seeing it in the wild for sure. It's pretty
funny. All right. So Kathy, thanks again so much. Appreciate your time, and glad we could ever work something out between the time differences, but wish you all the best. I know we'll continue to follow and share some of your great pieces. So looking forward to what you come up next. So thank you everyone for listening. Much appreciated. Another episode of Sneaks, Rhymes, and Life. This one with Kathy. So thanks again, and we'll talk to you all very soon.